Hello and welcome. I am Scarberlock, and this is City of Heroes. We're level 42. Still need a million plus XP to get to level 43. This is soloing the Stalker, and we are on the story arc of On the Run, where we are trying to get the Craycomp code from the Cray. And at some point, maybe already, I haven't been paying a lot of attention to the story arc. I will be on the run from the Cray, right? Because they're going to put my name out as being a industrial espionage person. I do want to point out we got this unyielding badge. It's because I was defeated. So I filmed this, but I decided I'm not going to post it because the video was pretty short. I've been having a problem with my arm, and it was bothering me a lot. And the so I wasn't actually playing very well. Not that I do anyway. I'm very distracted when talking to you folks, so sometimes I don't play that well. But in addition to being sloppier play than even normal, I don't feel like I talked about anything important in that episode, and but it did end with a defeat. So what happened is I was in stealth mode. Of course, I came out of the mission. I super jumped to the top of near a side of the building, the one building, and all of a sudden a sapper hit me, and I was like, okay, I'll turn around and go get him. And I think was he hovering in the air? I can't remember. I couldn't get hold of him, and then he drained me, and then the other agent that came after me stunned me, and then I couldn't get out of it. I didn't have a break free. And I guess I must have bought a couple, because I know what happened. So then I got out of the hospital. I don't know why I didn't get the badge before I logged out. And I actually went looking for them, because I was afraid they were in the zone and they were going to attack somebody else, and they were level 40s in Founders Falls, so they'd be possibly attacking lower level characters, and I didn't want that to happen, so I went looking for them, and I had to break free just in case. But it turned out that they were gone, I guess, so I couldn't find them again. And then I think I zoned on purpose to make sure, because where was I? I was in Steel Canyon or something when I logged in. I think I zoned on purpose to... Who's shooting me? I think I zoned on purpose to make sure that the ambush wouldn't stick around in Founders Falls. I don't think they do that anymore. And it may be that they despawn when you get killed. I'm not sure. But it used to be that if they defeated you, or if you zoned without fighting them, they would stick around the zone and like aggro to other people. And they would aggro to characters that were really low level and stuff, much lower than they were. When the ambushes first started, they had a lot of problems with that. And so because I knew they were having that problem, I just sort of trained myself to try and clean my ambushes up so that it doesn't end up, like a level 32 character doesn't end up having to fight a level 43 ambush. But I think they fixed it so they don't easily aggro to other characters besides the target, although you can aggro them. I just think you have to work a little harder at it than just a normal purple spawn or something. If anybody knows the details of how the aggro mechanics toward the non-target PCs in the zone work nowadays with ambushes, let me know, because I tracked it a little bit at the beginning that they were fixing it, and I remember that they did fix it so that they don't indiscriminately attack people anymore, but I don't remember the details. I just instinctively, I try to clean stuff up. Same thing with when I'm on the street, and I think I've explained this before. The way the street spawns work in City of Heroes is they're like a spawn like this. It's a spawn of 2 or 3 or however many minions, minion and a lieutenant, whatever. So you have a spawn point, and the spawn point is in a specific location in the zone, right, in the map. Just like here, right? So this hallway has a spawn point. There is some variability to it, right? So there's a spawn point, let's say the coordinate is right here, right? And the spawn will appear here plus or minus some amount. So probably somewhere between like here and here, right? And then I don't know if it's the place they spawn or the actual coordinate of the spawn point itself. They're leashed. They can't move beyond a certain point so they can wander. So I don't know if they're leashed to this spot and then they spawn here and then they can go, walk between these 2 points and then the leash pulls them back. Or if they're leashed to this spot if they spawn here. If anybody knows that, tell me, but I can't remember. I used to know this, but I can't remember. But anyway, they're leashed to roughly where they spawned, right? And in a mission, when you clear the spawn, that's the end of it. But on the city street, if this is the spawn point and they spawn over here and they're leashed to be between these 2 points, right? These two, this area and this area, right? They won't go wander beyond that. No one else will spawn in here while this spawn is present. While any of the spawn is present. So if 3 minions spawn here, and I come in and defeat 2 of them, and the third one runs away, and I leave because I'm bored, and the third one comes back and heals up, then he's going to just sit here, and the spawn will take a very long time to regenerate because he's still there. And the way the game works is, after he's defeated, the spawn is marked defeated. Everyone in it is the whole, like it's an array, like a little matrix. Number 1, 2, 3. Right? And if all 3 of them are, once all 3 of them are deleted and the array is empty, then it regenerates a spawn. It might now be a lieutenant and a minion or a boss instead of 3 minions. Those are the 3 options within that faction. But it will not respawn if you only defeat part of it. Now you have a fraction of the spawn. So I always clean my spawns up so that a new spawn will come in there. If I end up aggroing and start fighting something or whatever, I always clean it up so that it's not partial spawns left behind. Because then if somebody's coming doing a street hunt, then they want to find a bunch of Malta and there's only 1 guy there, then there are fewer guys than there are supposed to be in that spawn. I don't know if anybody else does that, but as a courtesy, I always clean the spawn up so that it will then trigger a respawn. Anyway, that's a little bit on how City of Heroes, the basics of how City of Heroes spawning works. The leashing mechanic also, you've seen it in missions. What'll happen is, if I hit this guy here, right? So these guys are generated around a spawn point in this hallway somewhere, maybe this spot, right? So she's going to run, but she can only run so far because she's leashed to this spot. I don't know what the total is inside a mission, right? They can go pretty far if they run. She can maybe go here, right? But eventually she's going to have to come back to her spawn point because that's how the leash works. And it works that way. They made sure it worked that way in cities, in the town, right? Because otherwise you can never track runners. They could run literally all over the city. And they always had a leash on them. But I remember in one of the early patches, right, like way at the beginning, somewhere around summer of 2004 when the game first came out in April, right? So somewhere like in May or June, July at the latest of 04, they went in there and shortened the leash. I don't know if they shortened it in missions, but they shortened it on the city because the leash was really long and they could go a couple of blocks and people were getting so frustrated chasing runners down because there were missions that a lot of us were doing at low level that basically said rescue 5 mugging victims on the street, right? And now I think they actually have spots in the park where there just are mugging victims sitting there, and the mugging victim and their antagonist will just keep respawning. But at first they didn't have that. They were randomly spawning on the street. And so if there's 2 guys, the one guy's tugging on the lady's purse and the other guy is threatening her, and you beat one of them up, the other one would run. And I can't remember which it was. I think it was the guy tugging on the purse was the coward and would run, and the other guy would fight. Maybe I got that backwards. I used to know it because I would attack the runner first. Because if you attack the other guy, then the runner would go, and initially they could run like pretty much halfway across Atlas Park because they had a really long leash. And now you can't find them, and you don't get credit for it. And the victim ran away, but she's on a really long leash too. And eventually they'll both come back, but it might take like 5 minutes, which doesn't sound like a long time, but if you're trying to hunt mugging victims, and everybody is doing it in Galaxy City and Atlas Park because that's what all the low-level characters are doing, and so many of the people were low-level because the game had just come out. When you find one, you need credit for it, or it was taking forever. So they finally shortened the leash on the spawn points. I think they just did it globally, so that when somebody ran, you could wait and they would come back pretty quickly, like within 30 seconds or so, because they just didn't go that far. Right, and there, with a bunch of new players hunting all over the street for Hellions and skulls and stuff. Also, what was happening was they see a guy running. They don't know he's running from your spawn, and they just beat him up, right? And now they defeat that guy, and you don't get credit for stopping the mugging, right? Because they're not in a team with you or anything. So then I don't know if either one of you would get credit for it, because you have to defeat both guys to get credit for stopping the mugging, right? So it forced them to change how the mechanics worked so that the spawns didn't wander as far from the spawn point. Probably more than anybody needs to know about City of Heroes spawn mechanics. Most of it no longer important because A, there aren't as many people in the starting zones trying to collect, save X number of muggers and stuff, right? We're not doing that. There aren't that many of us anymore, right? If you've been through and you've seen me go through Outbreak, right? They had to really up the spawns in Outbreak because when the game first started, you couldn't find it. You couldn't go defeat 4 guys. There aren't 4 guys. There's like 20 heroes wandering around looking for guys because they were beating them up, and before they could respawn. Like we're literally. And in City of Heroes, you can't camp spawn points because one of the things they did is made it so that if you stand where the spawn point is, nothing will spawn there. You basically suppress the spawn. So when it goes to spawn, it checks to see are there any players basically in sight. And if you're close enough to see them spawn, right, it won't do it. Because they thought it was very artificial to have things just materialize in front of you, and they programmed the game not to do that. So now you have all these people within sight of every spawn point in Outbreak. Every one of the villains has been defeated. And you can't find them, and you can't get out of the tutorial. It wasn't optional back then. You can't get out of the tutorial because you can't collect your 4 contaminated defeats, right? You can't defeat 4 contaminated guys because there aren't any. So they increased the instancing in Outbreak. They made it a much sharper. So instead of saying, well, there's got to be 25 players in the zone before it instances, they dropped it to 15. Or I don't know what the numbers were, but they cut it in half. And then they also dramatically increased the number of contaminated in the zone. So now when you go in there, they're just basically wall to wall. I mean, they're all practically on top of each other, right? That's because they had way fewer of them, a much more reasonable concentration of them, but people couldn't find them during the tutorial at launch, and so players were getting aggravated. They couldn't get out of the tutorial. You can't continue until you defeat 4 guys, and they couldn't find 4 guys. Those were the days, I would tell you. But it's not really a problem now because you don't have, back then the problem was that every person who bought the game had to go through that tutorial, and one point they were, early on, I think it was sold 150, 200,000 copies, right? So you got 10 servers, there's 15,000 people on a server, and all 15,000 of them have to go through the tutorial, right? So it was just so many people. Now, there aren't that many people going through the tutorial. A lot of them skip it. B, there are different tutorials you can go through now. And C, most people are past that and higher level, right? So yeah, it was different back then. It sure was. I do have to say, guys. So one of the things is it's been very hard for me. I'm such a computer using nerd that I use computers for work. I use computers for gaming. I use computers for other things. And with my arm bothering me the last almost week, and using the mouse, especially like gaming with it, was part of the problem. And maybe I did too much gaming with all the winter storms and everything, being home so much, and that's why it bothered me. I don't know, but I had to pretty much stop all of the computer gaming that I was doing, and I got really lucky that several of the these guys. I'll come back. Several of the war board games that I ordered came in a couple days ago. All right, it's just gonna have to be the Paragon Protector. And the nice thing about that is I was able to use the the last couple days. I was able to play the board game, and it wasn't bothering my arm. You know. Oh, you are annoying. Take this guy out first. I'm going to force him into this hallway, into the low ceiling, so that I can hit him. Come here. Get over here. You pain in the neck. Now he dulled pain, so I might be able to do some good damage to him. Right, dull pain just gave him hit points. That's no problem. I can take those back out. But it doesn't mean you're going to miss him constantly. Oh, there it is. There's his stupid moment of glory. Alright, we'll ignore him. He's going to follow me around, but I'll just ignore him and fight the other guys. Eventually he'll go out of it. Takes a minute or two. I'm going to hit overload here so that he can't do too much to me. Come on, why am I'm clicking these things and it's like it's not clicking? What's going on? I can't hit him. Where's the other guy? This guy. Bye. I think it's kind of funny that like he's blasting away at me and I just totally ignore him. I didn't bother to assassinate because I knew he was going to shoot at me. Like, you'd have to think he's a boss. He thinks he's so awesome. It's got to be humiliating for him that the superhero comes in here, totally ignores him, and starts fighting the minions as if they're more important. I have to imagine it's got to be a real, very bad for his ego. Alright, he should be off it now. A lot of times when they turn and go away, then it drops. So I'm going to placate you, and then I'm going to assassinate you. That's it. So, to me, that's the way I deal with them. Like, a lot of times I'll just run away if they're the only one left, but I figured, well, there's other guys here, and I figured for oranges and even red minions, it's not a big deal. Now, if I'd run into another boss, that wouldn't have been cool, but we're all right. What is going on? What did I miss? Find the Cracomp code. I haven't heard a single glowy. There's nothing. I should have started looking for the glowy while he was shooting at me. I thought there was more to this level. Nope. Well, guys, I don't know. Might have to autocomplete this. I don't. Let's do this thing. Which reveals everything. I don't see anything. Let's turn this stuff all off because I'm about to go out of. The overload's about to end. Yep. I'm starting to get a pretty good sense of how long that lasts. Okay, I've been everywhere here, right? Oh, wait, there's another elevator. Ho ho. How did I miss that? Talking too much. Or did I go down that one already? No, I missed this whole spot. I must not have come down this way, I guess. Alright, my rule is... Oops. Gotta turn on combat jump. Up here first. You guys know why. Because the guys downstairs won't see us, but these guys will see us look downstairs and see us down below. Is anybody on this side? There's not. Okay. Why did I only have a 77% chance to hit him? Oh, because I don't have focused accuracy on because I'm an idiot. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so I've been playing what's called American Tank Ace. It's a pretty cool game. I do think... Oh, the guys below saw me. Alright, well, placate. Give me some endurance, guys. Yeah, so I've been playing American Tank Ace. I'm enjoying it, although I was saying to the one guy I might have to house rule some things. It's a good game, but it's basically a solo game. You're playing you're driving Sherman tanks in World War II, and it's basically almost like a little role-playing game. All you do is fight combats, but you have NPC characters, and you've got a tank, and you gain XP, and you can buy promotions and stuff like that as you level up. And it's pretty cool. I've gone through 2 months. It's like a year and a half or over a year long campaign starting in June, going to, well, about a year. Starting in June 44 and going to April of 45. And it's fun, but I think one of my issues with it is, I mean, I've messed up a bunch of it where I was using the wrong tables to roll some of the damage, and I've made it inadvertently harder, I think, in a few cases than it is. So I don't want to like house rule anything yet. I want to go through a whole campaign first, and so far I'm just in June of 1944, or July of 1944. I just started August, just finished July. So you do like 8 missions a month. So there's a total of about, I think 64 missions, something like that, or 62 missions, and I've done like 14. So I have a long way to go. But I think one of my issues with it is that it's fun. I like a lot of the mechanics, but I think that there's a couple of problems. One is, I think, because in reality, right, the Sherman tanks, the earlier Sherman tanks in World War II were not as well armored as the German tanks, and not armored enough to stop the German tanks' armor-piercing rounds. So they were getting really hammered, and I remember reading somewhere that like the GIs used to put a bunch of sandbags on the front of their tanks to give them some extra kind of protection against the armor-piercing rounds and stuff. And the Shermans got better, and then eventually they got Pershing tanks at the end there the last couple months, and those things were much better. And I remember playing like Company of Heroes and some of these other games. Yeah, you really want those Pershing tanks if you can get them. But so the reality is that it was tougher for the troops in June of 44 than it was in uh, April of 45. Right? The Germans were failing. They weren't as they weren't they didn't have as much good equipment left and that sort of stuff, and the American equipment was getting better. But one of the consequences of that is that the game is actually, and I've talked about this a lot, when you're low level in a lot of games, it's similar. It's much harder in the early couple months. The first couple months is just brutal, and the just the terrain. You don't want to be too close, like to infantry and stuff. And one of the landscape types, bocage, I guess it's called, which is kind of like woods and farmland, is similar to woods, but you automatically start close range in battle, right? And the infantry, the only way they can really damage the tank badly is if they're in close range and they shoot basically a bazooka at you, right? It's called a Panzerfaust or a Panzerschreck. And so it's 50% chance you're going to start in bocage in June and July of 44, and then after that you're not, because the war had moved out of that area of France. And so like that's the toughest zone, and there's a 50-50 chance of being in the toughest zone when you're at your weakest. You're in the weakest tank. You have the fewest number of promotions, the least experience, lowest level of prestige, etc. None of your officers have been upgraded, and that kind of thing. And then later on, when you have all those promotions, you're not in the bocage anymore, and you don't have to start at close range. And so that's just unfortunately the way the war was, but I do think it makes for a tough gaming experience. But the real issue I have with it, and I feel like this is a problem in a lot of role-playing games too, is the random events. Like random events are cool, like wandering monsters and stuff in D&D. I think having them occasionally is a really good idea to kind of shake things up, make things different, add some variability. And if you're playing a solo game, you absolutely need random events. But I feel like in this game, you have to roll for a random event after every combat round. And so if you're in a long combat, you're doing 7, 8 events, so just they start repeating, it's too much. And so I think I might house rule that you only roll for a random event, that you keep rolling for random events until you get one, and then once you get one, you don't necessarily roll again. Now that's obviously not the intent of the designer, because one of them, if you roll boxcars, double sixes, it's 2d6. On the table, it says minefield, but there's an asterisk, and it says the first time you hit a minefield, you get like a global random event, which could be like an airstrike or something. And if you then in subsequent times you roll it, then you hit a minefield. And so obviously it's intended for you to keep doing this every round, and it says to do it every round. So I don't know what I'm going to do about that. Maybe I'll say that that's one of the events that doesn't trigger that it doesn't happen again, but like you can roll reinforcements, 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 reinforcements 4 times in a row because you're just constantly rolling on this random table. It's sort of like if the DM follows the rules in AD&D, you could have several sessions where all you do is just by luck fight random wandering monster after wandering monster after wandering monster. And okay, battle in D&D is fun, and it's fun to fight wandering monsters a little bit, but the dungeon has a theme and a story to it, and you're supposed to be exploring this dungeon, not just fighting random wandering monsters that have nothing to do with the story, right? And so I think there's a point at which it can be too much. So I might do something like, okay, you can't get more than one, off-map artillery strike per battle. You can't get more than one reinforcement event per battle. You can't get more than one, minefield result per battle, something like that. Because I feel like otherwise it's just the random events take over. You want to have random events, but you don't want the random events to be the most important part of every single mission. And I've had 3 or 4 missions that were just about to be a success for me, and then a random event on the last turn turned it into a failure. And that shouldn't happen that much. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you like random events in RPGs? Do you prefer more of them, or do you prefer fewer? Some people hate it. I mean, I remember watching a video of this one GM who was like, never, ever, ever use wandering monsters. Don't randomly determine what's in your dungeon. Always plan it out. Now, I totally oppose that. I think randomness is good. And if you watch my like Ironsworn playthrough and Starforged, right, the random events caused a lot of things to happen that I would not have planned and ended up being really cool. At one point, the protagonist of the is this guy worth fighting over here? No. The protagonist of the Ironsworn game, he was he was looking for some cultists, and he ended up in like a watchtower. And I don't know if he killed the cultists or the cultists weren't there, but he found like it said he found something. I can't remember the way I interpreted the role of the table is he found something disturbing or unnerving, and I asked the oracle some questions, action and theme, and somehow or other, whatever I rolled, what I came up with was he found out that his uncle, who he thought was dead, is actually in the cult or something like that. And now he has to confront his own uncle about being a cultist, which I wasn't planning. I don't even know if I knew he had an uncle, right? But by random rolls, I came up with this cool part of a story that I never would have thought of if I hadn't rolled randomly. So I think random events are great. Randomness is an important part, and especially playing solo, you want those random tables because you don't want everything to be deterministic. Otherwise, then you know there's there's no there's no excitement to it, right? Because you know everything that's going to happen. You can just decide. So it's definitely better to have those random events, but there's tons of randomness in the game already. So I don't know that the global random, not the sort of the end of round random events every single round is necessary. I feel like it's cool to have it happen a little bit for some surprises. Oh, look, there's reinforcements. Or, oh, randomly a German vehicle gets destroyed. And it's supposed to simulate there are other tanks and troops in the battle that you're not showing on your map, right? And these off-map individuals engaged and destroyed this tank for you. Very cool. I like that. And sometimes a new reinforcement comes or you get hit with off-map artillery. All that's fine. I don't mind it a little bit. But I feel like when it happens every round. Now, there are a couple of rolls, 6, 7, and 8, no event. But anything else you roll on 2d6, there's going to be some sort of an event. Which means, like, what, 75% of the time? So I feel like it's too much. What do you guys think? How much randomness is too much? Like in role-playing games. You can say for City of Heroes, for example, now that we're in the mission, there's effectively no randomness in this mission. Right, where the spawn points are is pretty much set. Once you've seen a warehouse map, you know roughly where the spawn points are going to be. I can predict where they're going to be pretty well. There are only a few. Once you've been on the warehouse, you'll notice that there are several chunks of maps that kind of go together pretty regularly. And although some of it is procedural, I don't know how much of it is. It sort of feels like there are like 5 warehouse maps, kind of. Or a small number, and once you've seen them, you've kind of seen everything there is to see. And they might be shuffled around a little bit, but it's not going to be shuffled around a lot, right? It's not going to be something you've never seen before when you're in a warehouse. The game doesn't work that way. So this is going to be a square box, and there are going to be spawns in the corners and spawns in all the little jagged things, and it's pretty symmetrical. Right, so there's 28 crates to destroy. Oh, wow. Okay. This is going to be a long mission, so this will probably be our last mission. This mission brings back memories for me. So I'll give you an old guild story. When we first started playing City of Heroes, my best friend was we had a triumvirate leading the guild. It was me, the good Rob, and my best friend. My best friend was sort of the first among equals, right? He was the guild leader of leaders, right? He was the main leader, and then the other guy and I were kind of like his vice presidents or whatever you want to call it. And so uh, he then had a bunch of his real life friends, and the good Rob had some of his real life friends. None of my real life friends wanted to play COH, but some of their friends, for their local friends from their local neighborhoods, like my best friend, his wife, his brother-in-law, um, his brother-in-law's girlfriend, they all kind of joined the game. And the brother-in-law's girlfriend, who played a character I'll just call Shroud, wasn't her name, but we'll just call her Shroud. Shroud was very good. So Shroud, I don't know if Shroud had like a night job or something, but often was playing during the day when the rest of us weren't, and ended up becoming friends with this other group of role players. Now our group was, so there's sort of, most role players recognize sort of three categories of role playing: light, medium, and heavy RP. So I've talked about this before. Heavy RPers are people who are kind of in character all the frickin' time. They do everything in character. They make forum posts in character. They talk in supergroup channel over in character over supergroup channel. They do all of their group chats. Everything is in character, and they're never going to say anything out of character. And if you start talking to them about logging in and logging out, they're saying, "What do you mean?" Right? Because our characters wouldn't know anything about logging in and logging out of this world. So that's what a heavy role player is. So they're all role play all the time. Medium role players are people who are in character in the local chat. They'll talk in character sometimes during missions, but they do tons of out of character chit chat in the supergroup channel or in their team chat. And their forums they have a designated in character section, and the rest of the forum are assumed to be out of character, right? The light role players are people who will role play occasionally a little bit, but they do a lot of out of character chit chat. They probably don't have a role play section on their forum. If they do, hardly anybody uses it. Maybe one of the players who's more of a medium or heavy role player who happens to be in this light role play guild because they're friends with somebody, right? But they're mostly, typing in leet speak or whatever. They're not necessarily doing a lot of role playing except when the mood strikes them. So, oh, I didn't realize this guy was here. This guy's not going to respect the hide. So, one of the things that I think started out as an issue was the other group. What we were kind of medium RP, and the other group was light, and so they didn't role play as often or quite the same way we did. But Shroud, I don't know if Shroud did a lot of role playing with them. I think she did some role playing with them, but also they just ran missions together and stuff, and they happened to just be on when she was on. And so then she started inviting them to a bunch of our role play events, so we'd have more people role playing, and that was fine. It's cool to have more people, but it was a little challenging to have folks in the role play session who are maybe not, maybe not as serious about role playing as we were. And so what does this have to do with this map? Well, okay. So it also turned out that this Shroud person, who actually eventually broke up with my best friend's brother-in-law, and I think kind of broke his heart, right? Because they were engaged, and then she dumped him. And I think, if I remember the story correctly, she dumped him for somebody that she was like gaming with during the day on COH while he was out working. So she basically dumped him for somebody that she met online. I don't know. I don't remember the whole detail, but I do remember my best friend's brother-in-law kind of didn't log in for a while, and he was kind of not around. And I said, "What happened to him?" And so my best friend told me the story. And at that point, Shroud had left the team, and I knew she had left, and something had gone on, but I didn't know what until my best friend explained this to me. Anyway, Shroud was a bit of a a drama queen. And I don't remember what had happened. Well, I do remember a lot of what had happened, but you guys don't want to hear it. There had been some sort of an issue, partly my fault. Um, and I don't think what I had done was all that big of a deal, but apparently the people on this other supergroup, who, in my opinion, like what we did in our group was none of their business anyway, but they didn't like it. And so, and Shroud, who was friends with both groups, was just making it super dramatic about it. And I think it had to do with whether they were going to be coming to our role playing events. I don't remember the whole story actually. Um, so she was really upset about it. And I had joined a group of other friends of mine who I knew from another game. And they and I were let's just hit overload here. This guy's so annoying. I hate Paragon Protectors. The Moment of Glory crap is so annoying because you can't do anything to them, and I don't like that. I don't like it that they can just floor you like that. Anyway, so what had happened is, she decided that this was such an issue that we needed to talk about it, and we need to talk about it like literally right now. Right now, we must talk about it. You and so I was with these people, and I was on this map. Look at this. I have 66% to hit, and I still cannot hit. Sometimes it feels like this has got to be wrong. By the way, I changed the color of my eyes. There we go. My eye beam's better. So anyway, I'm on this map, and we were right here. And I knew what this map was. I knew how big it was. And it was a timed mission, and I was helping these other guys. And we had come in here and gone this way, and we were right there. And, or maybe up here. I knew, we had done enough of it that I knew what map I was on. And and so Shroud contacts me and says, we have to talk, this is like a big deal. And I said to her, okay. And she's like, good. And I said, look, I'm in the middle of a mission with some other people. And as soon as the mission is over, I can talk. But it may take me 20 minutes or so because we're on what I think is a pretty big map. And she got really annoyed, and she said, well, this is you're supposed to be a guild leader, and this is really important, more important than a mission. And I'm like, I promised these guys I would help them do this mission. They were struggling with it, whatever mission it was we were doing. It wasn't this high of a level. We were like 20th, 21st, the third level, something like that. I don't know. They didn't have a tank. I was playing my scrapper, and I was kind of, off tanking for them, and not away tanking, but off dash tank. So I was being an off tank. Whoop, here. I don't want to put into the help channel. Where's local? There we go. I was being an off tank, right? Which is you're tanking, but kind of the poor man's tanker. You can't tank as well as a tank, and so what they were doing was there was a kinetics defender or somebody who was buffing me up so that I could kind of mostly tank for them. And if I had left, they were going to have to abandon that mission, right? And I had specifically set up with them, because I didn't know she was going to have an issue, that I have time today and I'm going to help you with this. Oh, overload. Forgot about that. That was stupid. Oh, I'm going to get killed. Watch. Yep, I'm going to die because I forgot about overload. Get away, get away. Turn on the mess defense. There we go. Okay. Busy talking. Alright, we're alright. Now they have no chance against me. It's just I forgot about overload. Because I was busy talking and I didn't notice the warning. Just can't hit today. So anyway, we're over here. I'd help these guys. I promised these guys I was going to help them, and I was like, I can talk to you, but after I finish the mission. Well, when do you think you're going to be done? I said, I don't know. It's a pretty big map. It's one of the big giant square warehouse maps, and we're only like a quarter of the way done. It's going to be a little bit. Well, she didn't like that. But every time I'm on this map, I'm reminded of that because I feel like I'd only been on one of these a couple times, but I'd been on it enough to know where we were and how much further we had to go on this map. And so, yeah, I'll never forget that. And so we finished up, and so what happened is somehow or other, it was like the craziest thing. So the good Rob logged in, and my best friend logged in, and I messaged them and said Shroud wants to have a talk about the way we're running the guild. And so they said okay, and so the good Rob was like, hey, you guys, let's have a meeting, we can talk about leadership and stuff like that. And Shroud was like, oh good. And before we knew it, there were all these people logged in. She somehow sent messages to all the people who were I don't know, the unsatisfied people, which wasn't many in the group, but they're the ones who all showed up to have the little conversation. And I remember being so impressed with the good Rob, because I don't feel like my best friend knew what to do with this. Maybe partly because he knew her in real life and didn't want to. Again, she was a bit of a drama queen, so I could imagine that she could have possibly made both his and his brother-in-law's lives pretty miserable in real life if she didn't get what she wanted, because that's the impression I got. Again, I didn't know her that well, but that's the impression I got from her. And so, but I was so impressed with the good Rob, because the guy has an MBA, and not for nothing does he know how to run things in business, and he showed his excellent management side. And this was all done typing, right? It was no like audio chat the way we're doing here, because we didn't have the ability to do that back then. And so, where's this other glowy? I hear it. Oh, here we go. There's several of them. All right. Why am I not going forward with this? When I hit it, there we go. So he was doing this all typed in, and so he said, okay, what are your issues? And so it was so clear that Shroud's player had something typed up in a text file, because it was like paragraph, and then a few seconds later paragraph, and then a few seconds later paragraph, right? With whatever her complaints were. And the good Rob was like, okay. So he listened to it, and then what he did, and I wish... Oh, that's why I wasn't jumping. I forgot to turn super jump on. I wish I could, in moments when this is going on at work or with students, I do it a little bit sometimes with students. Sometimes I'll have a moment of awareness and go, oh, I should use Rob's technique. But what he was doing was he was taking what they were saying and rephrasing it, summarizing it. So what you're saying is, you feel like we haven't done a good job of leading the guild because we haven't had enough roleplay events, right? And what was really interesting about this was how Shroud's player, every time Rob phrased it in like the harshest way possible about us being like, in other words, he made us out to be as bad as possible and like in the worst light possible. And she backed off every time. She was like, no, I don't mean you're bad leaders. I'm not saying that, but there should be more roleplay events. And he was like, okay, so you're saying you'd like us to run more roleplay events. Is that it? And she said, yes. And so then, he kept drilling down and like rephrasing, summarizing what she said. Have I got what you intended to say? Am I correct in the fact that you feel like this is unfair? Am I correct that you feel like we haven't done a good job with this? And in the end, it turned out that, yeah, what she was saying was kind of keep doing what you're doing, just do it a little bit more. And like, this is the crisis. That's what I mean about her being a drama queen, right? Because anybody else would have just had a little quiet conversation and said, yeah, you guys are doing a good job, just can you do a few more roleplay events? That's literally what it turned out, what it amounted to. It was really funny. But this map, every time I notice that I'm on this map, this map makes me think of that event in our guild. Very early on in our guild. It was like, I don't know, 3-4 months into the game. That's what I'm saying. I think I was in the 20s. I don't think I was 30th level at that point. Oh. I thought I had this place emptied out. Come over here. There we go. So I can get you both in the placate. Mostly just so I can assassinate this guy without the other one punching me. Those crisis units aren't very good at a crisis, because I'm clearly a crisis. Alright, we still have to find 2 crates. I missed them while talking, so we'll go back around. Should be able to hear them. So yeah, that's a little bit of old school guild drama. I don't think I've ever been in a guild that didn't have some kind of drama. That was my first... No, it wasn't my first guild. That was my first COH guild, but there was guild drama in our Star Wars Galaxies guild too. I remember we joined this really awesome guild. There were Imperials, there were rebels, covert rebels, covert Imperials, overt Imperials. Everybody got along. Everybody was friends. It was supposed to be guild above all, right? We're not going to worry about game factions. We're all friends and guild above all. And there was a group of people on the Imperial side who wanted to go... We were all covert. I guess you couldn't be overt. They wanted to go overt Imperial. They wanted to build Imperial stuff within our base, which would open the base to attack. And... Hi, guys. I'm not seeing these other glowies. Are they up there, maybe? No. Oh, here's one. And hopefully the other one will show up when we hit this. And so they wanted to take the guild Imperial, and the guild leader was like, no, we're not doing that. We agreed to be a neutral guild that everybody can be in, guild above everyone else, right? Guild above game, guild above faction. And so I don't know, something happened where they got into an argument with the guild leader, and who was, I think, was a covert Imperial, but just didn't want the guild to go overt. And so the guild leader said something like, so are you guys saying I'm not doing a good job, or something like that? And all of a sudden we got this notification that like 20 people quit. And the guild leader was like, what the heck? And we all were like, what did they do? Why did they all quit? And we really never got an answer. It was just because they want to be overt Imperials and she wasn't letting them. And it's like, guys, you agreed that we weren't going to do faction crap to the detriment of the guild when we formed the guild. So anyway, so then she stepped down because there was a lot of people who blamed her. So she stepped down. It was actually a guy. It was a female character. He stepped down. His wife stepped down because she was like the organizer of the guild. And they actually left the guild to avoid the drama, right? Like so that we wouldn't have the drama. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. The leader was so good. And then the guild ultimately just totally disintegrated and broke up. And then I remember this like it was yesterday. I was on my alternate character going around some planet on my speeder bike looking, because she was like an architect and I was looking for minerals or something, and I was trying to find places to put harvesters down. Oh, those are the days, guys. I used to love that game. And I was sending private messages to the guild leader's player, and we were talking about stuff. And the guild I had been in was not a roleplay guild. It was just, there were people in there, the leader and I and my best friend and the good Rob, who were in fact role-playing and role-played a lot. Oh, okay. We can replace. Just go ahead and do that. Do I need any recharges? No. Damages? Oh, yeah, I need a damage. I'll just go ahead. I mean, normally I'd wait for it to expire, but that's fine. Since it's level 45, it's good enough. Um, so I was talking with her, and I said, I I didn't realize this. I knew this wasn't the roleplay server, but I had a friend who was on Naritas, which was the server we were on, and like I said, I never actually even did anything with him. I saw him once in game, and he stopped playing, and I said, I wish I'd been in a roleplay guild, and so Renee, the player, this former guild leader, said something like, maybe I should start a roleplay guild. And I was like, well, if you did, I'd join it. And he was like, well, really? Well, I think, my wife would be in, and this guy would be in, and that guy would be in. And I'm like, hey, it would be so cool if we did it. I wish you would. And he was like, maybe I will. And he started talking about it, and I immediately tabbed out of the game. Oh, here we go. I'm putting this on right now. I immediately tabbed out of the game. Placate. I tabbed out of the game immediately and sent messages through whatever chat program we were using at the time, Trillion, ICQ, I don't remember, to the good Robin, my best friend, and said, hey, this guild leader guy is in game right now, and he's talking about starting a roleplay guild and a player town. You guys need to log in when you get a chance. And they were like, okay. And the good Rob was like, my lunch hour is coming up, because it was during the day. He's like, my lunch hour is coming up. I'll do it. And like 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later, he was logged in. My best friend was logged in, and they all like contacted the guild leader and were like, we want in, we want in. And by like the end of the day, we had come up with a guild name. This guy's wife was looking all over Corellia to find a player city location. We found one. We built our town, and we started a roleplay city that ended up growing to whatever the max size of cities were. All the role players on that server ended up in our group because the guild leader was awesome. That guy was really awesome. His wife was really awesome. They were a good team together, and it was just a wonderful. It was listed as a medium RP, but like we had heavy and light role players. We didn't care if you're a role player, just come on in. And I think eventually there were like 140, 150 people in this town that were pretty much all the role play, semi-serious to serious role players on the server that were in this one town with a great leader. But that was only after all the drama of the first guild that exploded because of the people who wanted to do overt Imperial PvP. So yeah, there's guild drama a lot of times, and it's funny how you make these connections. I started thinking about that just when I saw the square, that big square map that we were on tonight. Every time I see that map, I think of Shroud and that one day when we had this huge blow up on the guild that ended up being over almost literally nothing because Shroud was a drama queen and had to turn everything into a guild crisis when it was really just something small. Anyway, how long are we done here? Yeah, we're about almost an hour. So I think we're going to stop here. We're still on the run. We need to get the virus from Justine. We can do that since she's right here. And then we're going to, oh man, yeah, and I have to make sure that I turn all this stuff off because overload is going to end right now. Yeah. Let me get over here before it does, just so I can talk to her and turn this off and turn that off. And then there goes the endurance, and we got our clue from her. And now we're going to have to upload stuff to the Crate Network, but we will do that next time, guys. I hope you've enjoyed. Hope you didn't mind my little trip down memory lane. And until next time, I am Scrapperlock, and this has been City of Heroes, soloing the Stalker.